Hey, this is Nick from Poise and Balance, certified teacher of the Alexander Technique, helping you improve your posture, your performance and your presence. So a question I get asked regularly, and so many pupils come to me because they want to improve their posture, particularly when they're seated. Most people are seated in chairs for long periods of time, and it really affects their posture. The developer of the Alexander Technique said there's no such thing as a correct posture, but there is such thing as a right direction. And when I ask people, would you like to know what the best posture is? I always say to them, the best posture is the next posture, because the body doesn't like being stuck in any one position. And when we think of posture, it's often something we feel we have to do. Posture is something we generally feel we need to sort of hold ourselves up because we find ourselves slumping. And if we're sitting in chairs for long periods of time and we start to feel achy and we can start to feel discomfort in the body, that's the body telling us, that's the internal alarm, that pain that you feel in your body that's telling you you need to move. So the best posture is the next one, so we don't get stuck in any one position. And posture, when we think of the word posture, it does imply a position. Let me put this skeleton in that position because you'll be able to see it more clearly. I prefer the word poise. When we think of posture, it's much more of a state of being. When we're really feeling alive and excited and aware, we're much more upright, the body feels much more fluid and coordinated. If we've been sitting in a chair for too long, we feel a little bit slumped, a little bit collapsed. So I'm going to take you through a few basic procedures in this video. And we often teach the Alexander Technique using a chair. The chair really reveals the pattern of coordination, the habits, the muscular tone of the body, particularly what's happening in the neck and the head. And the head determines overall coordination of the body. And we're not really training muscles, we're really training the thinking, which influences our movement. Our thinking, our conscious, constructive thinking, influences the quality and tone of our muscles, it influences the quality of our movements, it influences our breathing, our nervous system. So we're really training the thinking. Alexander said, the work's not about getting in and out of the chair. It's not a form of physical culture. We're choosing how we respond to a given impulse or stimuli. And when we have a stimulus to move, it's often a contraction and a reaction into movement. And what often happens is the relationship of the head, neck and back, we tend to sort of diminish the poise and upset the balance of that relationship, which is so important when it comes to sustaining and maintaining good posture. We want all the head, neck and back, or the torso, neck and head to work really fluidly and dynamically, working as an integrated whole. And what we see when we work with most people is when they go to sit or to stand, they upset the balance of the head. So typically, when one goes from sitting to standing, that we'll be using too much effort and contraction, we'll be pushing with the back, the lower back, the head will go forward. And we'll be tightening all those muscles in the torso. So there's like a pulley system of muscles, one that runs along the front of the torso, one that runs along the back, the posterior chain of muscles. And we want an even distribution of muscle tone. We want the skeletal systems set up so we're really grounded and rooted in the sit bones. So as I'm sitting here, I'm grounded in the feet. My feet are touching the ground, ground's touching the feet. This chair doesn't have any opinions, it doesn't have any choices, it's not conscious, it's not flexible, it's not adaptable. I'm all those things. I'm conscious, I'm flexible, I have choices, I have opinions, and I'm adaptable. I can adapt myself to this chair. And mostly what happens is we spend thousands or hundreds of pounds sometimes on ergonomic chairs, and we forget about our own inner ergonomics, our own inner workings and how this system can come together and work as an integrated whole. So we're developing body intelligence. One of the biggest blind spots is the back. We never really think about our back until we feel some sort of ache, discomfort. Back's killing us, my back's killing us, my back's killing me. Your back isn't killing you, it's what you're doing with your back that's killing your back. So if we say, my back's killing me, we're almost relinquishing responsibility. We're saying like, the back is doing something to me. No, we're doing something to the back, and it's often because we're sitting for too long. So yeah, keep moving. Try moving every 20 minutes, don't get stuck in a chair. Even after 20 minutes, if I'm in a chair, my back will start aching, and that's my body's a clever internal alarm giving me a signal that something needs to shift, something needs to change. And the body is amazingly incredible at adapting itself to any given circumstance. So if I'm working and looking in a computer like that all day and I'm stuck in a chair, the contracting tissue will just reinforce that position to keep me stuck in that position. But that's problematic because all those muscles get tense and contracted and held, often resulting in conditions such as neck pain and back pain and stuff like that. So we're going to look at the head balance. One of the biggest blind spots when it comes to movement and having free flowing coordination, everything balanced relative to the head and spine, is the head balance. So when we're looking at that free flow, we want the head floating up on top of the tip of the spine. And typically what a teacher will do is just work very gently in releasing some of the neck muscles here. These neck muscles are rich in sensory nerves. And it's almost like they're like a weak link in the chain. Because when the head goes off balance, that puts a downward pressure on the spine, and it impinges on the discs and the nerves, and it shortens that chain of muscles. So what we tend to do is work very subtly with this area, and we're looking for this release so those muscles can start to release, and we just get a little rocking in the head. That rocking in the head almost unravels it, unlocks that chain of muscles in the back, so those chain of muscles in the back can start releasing, these muscles in the front can start releasing, this cylinder of muscles around the torso can start expanding. So we're looking for this extension, this length all the way through the body, all the way through the spine, neck and head, and also this expansion. So I like that thought of this extension and expansion all the way through the head. And when the neck muscles start to release, we get this lovely rotation in the neck. So you get that rotation, and it's like a little bobbling. It's like a little bobbling where the head can just gently rock freely. And when the head can just rock freely on top of the tip of the spine, right in the atlas occipital joint, that's a really important joint, and we get a little bit jammed. The head's an enormous weight. So the head weighs 5 kilos. This is 2.5 kilo blocks, and that balances on top of the tip of the spine. And as soon as the head goes off balance, you can see that downward pressure and collapse in the body. So when I work with pupils, my hands are conveying information to the neuromuscular system. We've got highly skilled, trained hands. Certified teachers have trained for at least 3 years, and we convey this information to the hands. It can be done by yourself. So as I said, the quality of your movements is directly proportionate to the quality of your thinking, and your thinking does influence the muscles. So when we think about moving, it's more about what not to do. It's not thinking about what to do, it's sending these inhibitory directions. So when I say directions, this is the conscious constructive thinking that we're directing to the body, we're directing to the muscles. So the conscious constructive thinking in this case would be, I'm just going to ask all those muscles to come into neutral. And the muscles, like motors, constantly driving the body, and mostly they're overstimulated and overexcited, they're overworked, they're a little bit tight, compressed and knotted. So we're looking to sort of think about unraveling those muscles, bringing that system back into balance. It's like this neutral, natural state where those muscles have an opportunity to switch off and they can start to lengthen. So my system's very quiet at the moment. I'm thinking of the neck muscles releasing. I'm thinking of my head floating up on top of the tip of the spine and releasing into the space above me. I'm thinking of my torso expanding. The torso includes the back. Back is like a blind spot. This head balance, this head movement is like a blind spot. We're so used to pulling down, the head going off balance, and that is so important in determining overall coordination for the body. And just think, a characteristic of any great performer, someone who looks very poised and present and has got really good posture. Much better word for posture is poise, this sense of being poised and everything just working in harmony, this sense of integrity, this experience of integrity and everything just flowing. And just to give you a demonstration, if I was working on a pupil, I would just have my two little fingers right in between ears. It's almost, that's where the head pivots and rocks and rotates on top of the tip of the spine. And I would just sort of my hands would just be guiding the pupil, my student. And there'd be this sense of the whole torso, neck and head working together as a whole. So I could say that movement was being directed by the head. The head, we often say the head leads and the body follows, so I'll just show you what that means in a moment. So when all those muscles start to release, I can get the head and just, when I say get the head, I can just guide the head. I can guide the head and the whole body will follow. And to give you another sense of that is I can just guide my head forwards. I'm not getting ready to rush into movement. Most people rush into movement. It'll be a little bit of a muscular contraction to sort of feel I've got to sort of push myself up. What I'm really doing is releasing deeply down into the hip hinge joint. The head is leading, and then just gently release forwards. And you can see as I'm doing that, I'm maintaining this expansion and length all the way through the spine. The feet are rooted on the ground. And as I come forward, I keep directing and keep thinking of that expansion and length all the way through the body. And what you focus on expands. Where the intention goes, the energy flows. So as I'm thinking there, I'm just pressing into the feet and leading up with the head. And I can come up into full extension and expansion. And as I continue to release up, I can also think of releasing down. Then I'm going to take that movement, I'm going to take that into movement again. So releasing into the hips, into that springy position of mechanical advantage. There's another video me demonstrating that in a bit more detail. And I'm hinging from there, not bending from the back. And you can see as I'm hinging from there, the knees release forwards and away over the line of the feet, and I come up into fully being upright. And as I'm directing up through the spine, I'm also releasing down through into the sit bones. The sit bones are the foundation of the spine, which is the base of the pelvis. And sometimes it's just good to just have a little rock on the sit bones. When I'm rocking on the sit bones, it's like just having a little bit of fluidity going through the spine. I often say it's like shaking awake as a wilted bunch of flowers. So it's like, just feel that release there. Then as I go into movement, the first thing I do is just give myself a moment's pause. That gives me the opportunity to have a little bit of thought behind the movement, a little bit of intention. So I've got this attention and I've got this intention of how I'm going to move. And I'm going to move very lightly and freely with minimal effort. I call it economy of movement. So one of the things you want to be exploring is how could you carry a movement out with minimal effort and this sense of poise. What really helps with the poise is the eyes. The eyes really influence the balance of the head. So if I'm looking down, the head will fall down. If I'm looking up, the head will pull back back and down. So I want your eyes to be looking out with this expansive view. And then as I come forward, I'm not looking up. Most people, when they go to stand up, they'll be literally thinking, well, if I've got to stand up, my eyes have to sort of roll up to take me up into the movement. What I'm doing is still maintaining that poise and length in the spine. So my eyes are sort of looking here. And as the weight releases into the feet, then my eyes just gently come up into the upright. Because the eyes really do influence the balance of the head. And the head influences the coordination of the spine, and the coordination of the head, neck and back influences the coordination of the body. So the central balance system is so important. And you can see that I'm releasing in the hips. I've got that length through the spine. I'll just give you a side view so you can see that again. So before I go to move, I give myself these inhibitory thoughts. That's bringing all the muscles back into neutral, so they're not fired up, they're not overexcited, they're not going to contract into movement. Making sure I'm breathing. Smiling is always good. If I'm trying too hard, if I think I've got to apply too much effort, I'm probably not going to be smiling, I'm probably not going to be breathing. It'll be like the breath will be held, I'll be pushing myself into movement, I'll probably breathe when I arrive into the standing. What I want to be doing is breathing and smiling, just letting the weight come onto the feet. And you can see I've got that length all the way through the body. It doesn't need to go that far forward, but I'm just demonstrating that length is all the way through the body. The neck muscles are still free. I'm still lengthening in these back muscles, still opening in the front, the sides of the torso, pressing into the feet and leading up with the head. And as I come up into full extension and expansion, I can still think of directing up. What happens when most people sit in the chair? They are thinking down, the weight of the body's pulling down, the head's pulling down. That creates a real downward pressure and compression and a pull down in the torso. So when we use our conscious constructive thinking, do you remember where I said where the intention goes, the energy flows? What we think about, we bring about. So if I'm directing up here, that minimalizes the tendency to pull down. So as I'm directing up, your conscious intention is really powerful. It really does influence the quality of our movements. So what we're really training is the thinking. I'm not holding muscles. If anything, I'm undoing muscles and letting this amazing system, this inbuilt anti-gravitational system, activate. I'm activating what we call the primary control, the relationship of the head, neck and back. So all that is working fluidly and freely. So as I'm going down, my intention is to go up, to keep the head floating up on top of that at the occipital joint, releasing in the hips and coming into that upright position. And as I release down, I'm still thinking of releasing down into the sit bones, lengthening up through the spine. So I've got that oppositional force. Every force has an equal and opposite reaction. So the more I can release into my feet, the more I can release into these second pair of feet. We call them the feet of the spine. And we really want to get crystal clear and start to really feel the sit bones. And mostly we're a little bit slumped. So it's like tailbone sitting. We're not really even sitting properly on the sit bones. We're more like sitting on the base of the spine, which creates compression and tension. Or sometimes we go to hyperextending. We're sort of overly sitting really upright, and that's as problematic as slumping. So it's like we want this sweet spot where we're not slumping and we're not hyperextending or sitting too upright, which causes too much tension. Just like this weight is sitting and resting evenly into the sit bones. When you see a child, they sit effortlessly. We were all able to sit effortlessly. So when you think of good posture, think of it's more like a state of being. It's more like starting to mobilize these muscles, starting to get intelligent about the body, starting to notice if you are sitting on the sit bones, start to notice if you are hyperextending, if you are slumping and sitting on the tailbone. And just see if you can practice sitting on your sit bones. And it's okay to have a bit of support behind the back. So I could be sitting here and I could have some support behind the back. This is quite a clever chair because it sort of rocks. And what it does is there's a little bit of support where there's a little bit of a wedge in the chair, so it's slightly tilting me upright, so that encourages the pelvis to slightly tilt forwards. And it's got this rocker on here which encourages the spine to lengthen up, and it helps to eliminate that slump. So sitting's something we do every single day, and it's really damaging for the body. And we can sit in a way where the spine is much more free. The muscles aren't so contracted and tightened. And it's a brilliant way to start to look at those everyday movements, start to bring some awareness, start to explore, start to notice what happens when you're sitting in a chair. What's your pattern of habit of sitting in a chair? What's your pattern and habit of maybe going from sitting to standing? Are you slumping? Are you collapsing? So when you come down, are you pulling down? Is your attention going down? Or are you directing up through the spine, neck and head? Are your feet rooted to the ground? Is it a lovely, flowing, coordinated, connected, whole sequence movement where the body is directed as a whole? And I'll just finish off on this. It's a very natural movement. So if you imagine there was a chair, then what I'm going to do is use that conscious constructive thinking to mobilize the energy to roll up through the spine, neck and head, releasing those antagonistic pulls and muscles in the back and the front. And there could be a chair there, then I would land in the chair, but you can see there's not a chair, so that's the movement. It goes straight into a squat. The halfway position is that ready position, what we call that position of mechanical advantage. So that can be practiced using a chair that's standing. As I go into that ready position, I'm directing up through the spine. The head is floating up on top of the tip of the spine, releasing the knees away from each other so they're tracking over the line of the feet and they're coming to upright. So it's a brilliant way to start to notice the coordination of the body, how much effort and tension we bring into the movement. Is it a contraction into movement? Are we slumping and pulling down? Or are we mobilizing the spine? So we use our conscious constructive thinking, and that's really what we're doing in the Alexander technique, is using the mind and the body to coordinate the movement, but more importantly the conscious constructive thinking. So I hope that video was useful. Thanks for watching, and if you want to watch some more videos, subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.